Cascading Style Sheet, CSS. These are the contents of the lecture. We will discuss what is CSS, styling with cascading style sheets, selectors and style definitions, linking HTML and CSS, how we can link HTML with CSS, fonts, background, borders, the box model, alignment, z-index, margin, padding, and all relevant index contents of the CSS. CSS is a style sheet language used for describing the presentation of a document written in a markup language like HTML. CSS is a cornerstone technology of the World Wide Web alongside HTML and JavaScript. Its official website is www.w3.org. CSS is designed to enable the separation of presentation and content, including layout, colors, and fonts. This separation can improve content accessibility, provide more flexibility and control in the specification of presentation characteristics, enable multiple web pages to share formatting by specifying the relevant CSS in a separate .css file, and reduce complexity and repetition in the structured content. Separation of formatting and content also makes it feasible to present the same markup page in different styles for different rendering methods, such as on screen, in print, by voice, via speech-based browser or screen readers, and on braille-based tactile device. CSS also has rules for alternate formatting if the content is accessed on a mobile device. The name Cascading Style Sheet comes from the specification priority scheme to determine which style rule applies if more than one rule matches a particular element. This cascading priority scheme is predictable. This is the resulting page by enabling CSS on HTML web page. We can select different color, font size, and font style on the basis of tags, ID, and class. And this is how we can make our web page more presentable and more attractive. CSS used to describe the presentation of documents, define size, we can define fonts, colors, layout, and we can improve content accessibility. CSS is designed to separate presentation from content. Due to CSS, all HTML presentation, tags, and attributes are deprecated. That is font, center. Now these tags are part of CSS. Before the introduction of CSS, these tags were used in HTML. CSS can be applied to any XML document, not just to HTML, XHTML. CSS can specify different styles for different media like on-screen, in print, handheld, projection, even by voice or braille-based reader. Why cascading? Priority scheme determining which style rules apply to the element. Cascade priorities are specificity, weight, are calculated and assigned to the rules. Child elements in the HTML document object model tree inherit styles from their parent, can override them, and we can control this behavior via important rule. This is how we can apply CS on web page. We can define font size of H1 based on its location, based on its section, and we can also define P tags text indentation based on its implementation in different parts of a web page. We can apply different heading styles on different sections of a web page. We can apply background colors on header, and we can apply a different background color in footer and on navigation bar. We can use the same tags, but we can customize them according to our design and style. In CSS, inheritance controls what happens when no values are specified for a property on an element. CSS properties can be categorized in two types. Number one, inherited properties, which by default are set to the computed value of the parent element. Number two, non-inherited properties, which by default are set to initial value of the property. Refer to any CSS property definition to see whether a specific property inherits by default. You need to set inherited yes or not. Inherited properties. When no value for an inherited property has been specified on an element, the element gets the computed value of that property on its parent element. Only the root element of the documents get the initial value given in the property summary. A typical example of an inherited property is the color property given the style rule. The word emphasized text will appear green as we have set green property of P tag. Since the EM element has inherited the value of the color property from the P element, it does not get the initial value of the property, which is the color that is used for the root element when the page specifies no color. Some CSS styles are inherited and some are not. Like text related and list related properties are inherited. Color, font size, font family, line height, text, align, list style. These are the tags which inherit properties. And the box related and positioning styles are not inherited, like properties of width, height, border, margin, padding, position, float. A element do not inherit color and text decoration properties. CSS has a simple syntax and use a number of English keywords to specify the name of various style properties. A style sheet consists of a list of rules. Each rule or rule set consists of one or more selectors and a declaration block. Selectors. In CSS, selectors declares which part of the markup a style applies to any matching tags and attributes in the markup itself. Selectors may apply to the all elements of a specific type, that is second level headers H2, elements specified by attributes in particular ID and identifier, class and identifier that can annotate multiple elements in a document. This is the structure of CSS syntax. This is the selector. Selector could be element name, it could be ID, class, and name of the tag. And properties of the selectors are defined by English words like color is a property name and its value is black. We can set it different colors like we can set this value to blue, green, black, and padding. Second property is padding. So this is the syntax. We need a selector and then its property and its value. And all these properties are terminated by semicolon or and include in curly braces. And properties and values are separated by colons. Selectors determine which element the rules are applied to. All elements of specific type tags, those that match a specific attribute, ID, class, elements may be matched depending on how they are nested in the document tree HTML. For example, here we have dot header. This is the class name. Dot header A, color green, and menu list item padding top 8 pixel. Three primary kind of selectors. By tag, we can define CSS rules based on tags, like we need a selector which could be any element h1. It means all h1 elements would have font family Verdana sans serifs. The first priority of the font family is Verdana. If it is not available in the browser, then sans serif will be applied. We can apply CSS rule by element ID. ID is denoted by a number sign. After number sign, we can write the ID of any element or tag. This is element underscore ID, and this is the property which is separated by colon with the value, and value is in RGB format, that is red, green, blue colors. By element class name only for HTML. We can group a number of elements within a document by a class name. This is a class, that is my class. All the elements, those are annotated with my class, and their border will be 1px solid red. Selectors can be combined with commas. Either they are headers, element IDs, or the class name. We can group them. h1 comma dot link is a class name and hash top link is the ID. So we have combined all three types of selectors in one rule. All these selectors would have font weight bold. This rule will match h1 tag elements with class link and element with ID top link. All h1 elements with the class name dot link and ID top link will have font weight bold in that particular document on which this particular rule will be applied. A CSS pseudo clause is a keyword added to a selector that specifies a special state of the selected element. For example, hover can be used to change a button's color when the user pointer hover over it. Pseudo clauses lets you apply a style to an element not only in relation to the content of the document tree but also in relation to external factors like the history of the navigator that is visited, for example, status of its content like checked on certain form elements, or the position of the mouse like hover, which lets you know if the mouse is over an element or not. Like regular classes, you can chain together as many pseudo clauses as you want in a selector. Pseudo element defines element parts are used to generate content. A pseudo element is a keyword added to a selector that lets you style a specific part of the selected element. For example, first line can be used to change the font of the first line of a paragraph. You can use only one pseudo element in a selector. It must appear after the simple selectors in the statement. CSS rules can be applied to tags based on their placement. Like first rule is in this slide, match relative to element placement. PA text decoration underline. This rule will match all A tags that are inside of P tag because we have typed A after P. It means any element which is after P or which is placed after P will be applied with this rule. Second type of match would be steric. This is called universal selector. It should be carefully applied to any document because this will match all descendants of P element. All the elements those are present in P, they will be affected with this rule. Their color would be black. Next is plus selector, used to match next sibling. img plus dot link float right. This will match all siblings with class name link that appears immediately after img tag. Parent, sibling, children are the relations between the nodes. Tags, as in case of HTML, siblings. All the nodes which share the same parent are siblings. All the nodes which share the same parents are sibling, and the children are those nodes which the current node point to as parent are the children nodes. Greater than selector, greater than sign selector matches direct child nodes like P greater than sign dot error, font size would be 8 pixel. This will match all elements with class error. Any element which is direct children of P will be affected with this rule. Square bracket match tags attributes by regular expression. If we want to use a regular expression to select any property of image, then we will apply this rule like img. In square bracket we will write the expression like this alternate text. We were using alt for alternative text if image is not loaded in web browser due to any reason, then the text we will set for alt will appear on web browser. In this case, in img, where alt attribute is approximately equal to logo, likely equal to logo, its border would be none. This will match all img tags with alt attribute containing the word logo. Then dot class 1 dot class 2, no space between them, matches element with both all classes applied at the same time. Class 1 dot class 2 with no spaces matches element that has both classes. If we add space between dot class 1 space dot class 2, it will match elements with class 2 inside element with class 1. CSS values and units. Every CSS declaration includes a property value pair. Depending on the property, the value can include a single integer or keyword. To a series of keywords and values with or without units, there are common set of data types. Values and units that CSS properties accept. Text data types are either string, a quoted series of characters, or an ident, a CSS identifier which is an unquoted string. A string must be quoted with either single or double quotes. Predefined keywords are text value defined by the specification of that property. These keywords are also CSS identifiers and are therefore used without quotes. When viewing CSS property value syntax in CSS specification, allowable keywords will be listed in the form left, right, none, inline, start, inline, end. Such values are used without quotes. Colors are set in RGB format, decimal or hexa, where RGB means red, green and blue colors. We can use predefined color aliases exist like black, blue, and we can use numeric value and they can be specified like pixels and EMS. Points, inches, centimeter and millimeters. Percentages can also be used. 0 can be used with no unit like border is equal to 0. Browsers have default CSS styles. These styles are used when there is no CSS applied or there are no other style information in the document. These default styles differ in browsers like margins, paddings and font size differ most often and usually developers reset them. Like these are the default browser styles where margin is 0 and padding is 0. Linking HTML and CSS. Now we will see how we can link CSS with HTML. Before implementation of this technology into CSS, let's discuss 3 different ways to connect CSS with HTML. HTML content and CSS presentation can be linked in 3 ways. Number 1 is inline. The CSS rule in the style attributes, no selectors are required. All the CSS rules we can apply in any element like H1, P, and this type of styling or application of CSS is called inline. Number 2 is embedded. In the head, in a style tag, we can apply CSS. We can write the CSS declaration block there with selectors. And number 3 and most recommended is external CSS rules. In external CSS, rules are written in a separate file and then this file is attached with HTML, usually with link relation element. The CSS file has .css extension, and this file is linked via link element with attribute rel is set to style sheet, and in href we will give the path to CSS file. Our import directive in embedded CSS block we can use to link CSS. Using external file is highly recommended. It simplifies the HTML document and improves page load speed, and the CSS file is cached in the browser. Let's see an example of CSS. This is inline style sheet we have applied on a file that is named as inline-style.html. This is the output of the file. If we see its page source, then the style sheet is applied here with the style attribute. Font size is 20 pt. Here is some more text, and again we have a style font size 20. Color is this. We have specified the color of the text, even more text, and these are the two different styles embedded on p tags individually. In this way we can write a CSS for a single element, and this type of style sheet is called inline style. This is the paragraph 1. We have applied the font size, and this is the second paragraph where we have applied color and font size both. CSS Cascade precedence. There are browsers, user and author style sheet with normal and important declarations. The priority precedence goes like browser styles have the least priority. After that, normal user styles are applied, and after that, normal author style external in head inline style sheets are applied. Then important author styles are applied, and the maximum priority we can set by important user styles max priority, and we can apply this property like this: a color red, sign of exclamation, and important. By applying this keyword we can override all the priorities of browser, normal user, normal author, and important author styles, and this property will be applied on a tag. CSS specificity. CSS specificity is used to determine the precedence of CSS style declaration with the same origin. Selectors are what matters, like simple calculation: if id is equal to 100, class is 10, pseudo is 10, attribute is 10, tag is 1, and star is equal to 0. So then if the same number of points, then order matters. Embedded styles. The next type of style sheet is embedded. In this type of style sheet, style rules are embedded in the HTML in the style tag, like style type text CSS. The style tag is placed in the head section of the document. Type attributes specify the MIME type. MIME describe the format of the content. Other MIME types include text HTML, image GIF, text JavaScript. External style sheets. External style sheets are defined with external linking. Separate pages can all use a shared style sheet. We have a one file that can be attached with different web pages, and uh, all the styling is written in that particular .css file. If we have a website of 500 web pages, we can attach a single .css file with the whole website with the and if we want to change any styling, we want to change a coloring scheme, if we want to a specific behavior, we only need to change a single file, and all the changes would be applied to the entire website. To link an external CSS with your HTML web page, you need a link tag with a rel attribute. It specifies a relationship between current document and another document. Like link rel is equal to style sheet, type is equal to text CSS. This is the MIME type of CSS. And here is hrefs styles.css, where styles.css is the name of file. And this link element should be in the header of the HTML page. Another way to link your external style sheet is add import attribute, which you can apply in style element. In style element, after specifying MIME type, you need to set at import URL where your file is located on your web server directory. This attribute can be applied in another format, that is at import in double quote style.css. But this tag is not supported by old browsers. This import attribute can be used in external CSS file to work around the IE32 CSS file limit. This is an example of external CSS file. This is styles CSS, and this is one file, and this is another file, external styles.html. Let's see its implementation. This is the styles.css file. You can open this styles.css, any editor of your choice. I'm using here Notepad++. All the styling is defined here: anchor tag, a hover, pseudo class, list item, emphasize tag, unordered list. All these are uh, defined here. To link this style.css, we need a page which is external styles.html. In external styles.html, this is the link tag we were discussing, link type text cs rel style sheet, and this is the name of file styles.css. You have linked this styles.css with this web page, and in this page you can use any number of elements or the content you want to type here. The formatting and the look and feel will be applied on these tags according to the rules defined in styles.css. Let's see the output of this file. Double click on this file and you will see the output. Unordered list, this is text, and this is the pseudo class defined here. On hover, it changes from blue color to red color. In this way you can apply style sheets to any web page. Text related CSS properties. In text related CSS properties, we can specify the different properties of text. Like color, we can specify the Color of any text related elements, like we can specify the color of text in paragraph, in heading, and other different elements where text is involved. We can set font size of font could be XX small, X small, small, medium, large, X large, double X large, smaller, larger, or numeric value. And these are the different font sizes of the text we can apply. Then we can apply the font family, like comma separated font names. We can apply Verdana sans serif. The browser will load the first one that is available. If it is not available, the browser will go for the next available font style, font family. There should always be at least one generic font that is most particularly available in all browsers. Font weight can be normal, bold, bolder, lighter, or a number in range from 100 to 900. Then we can apply CSS rule for fonts, like font styles the font, like values, normal, italic, oblique. Text decoration decorates the text. Its values none, underline, line through, overline. These are the type of text decoration. If we apply text decoration and its value is none, there will be no text decoration. If the value is underlined, there will be underline in the text. Then we can apply text align properties, like left, right, center, and justify. Font properties. Shorthand rule for setting multiple font properties at the same time. We can use this shorthand rule if we want to type less and we want to apply number of properties in one line. For example, if we want to apply italic, normal, bold, its size and font family, we can apply it like this. All these values are equal to, like font style, that is italic. We have specified only one word here. Font variant normal, font weight bold, font size 12px, line height 16px, font family Verdana. All these properties can be written in one line instead of all this code. Background image. URL of image to be used as background. For example, background image colon URL back.gif. The same way we can apply background color, background repeat. Repeat X, repeat Y, repeat, and no repeat. Background attachment, if there is any attachment that would be fixed or scroll, we can define its behavior on background. If we want to use a particular image file in the web browser and we want to apply different characteristics of that particular on that particular image, we can apply using these styles. We can also specify background position. It specifies vertical and horizontal position of the background image. Vertical position could be top, center, and bottom. Horizontal position would be left, center, or right. Both can be specified in percentage or other numerical values. For example, if we want to apply background position, it can be applied top left, or we can specify particular pixel values like -5x and 50%. -5 from top and 50% from left. Background shorthand property can be applied to avoid writing all this code. Background color colon FFF0C0, we can only write background colon and all the property values like background color, image. We can type the URL of the image, repeat or no repeat, attachment fixed, and background position. Some browser will not apply both color and image for background if using shorthand rules. There must be some difference when we using different browsers. There could be a different output results. Background images allow you to save many image tags from the HTML, and it will leads to a less code, more content oriented approach. Then it is recommended to use background image. All images that are not part of the page content and are used only for beautification should be moved to the CSS. Then how we can apply CSS rules on borders? We can apply CSS rules on border width. It could be thin, medium, thick, or numerical value that is 10 pixels. We can also apply border color, color alias or RGB value. In color alias we can use black, green, blue, and in border style we can use no border style, hidden, dotted, dashed, solid. Double group, different border styles can be applied. Each property can be defined separately for left, top, bottom, and right. Like border top style, border left color, we can specify. Border shorthand rule for setting border properties at once. We can use shorthand form of writing border styles. We can write border colon 1px solid red. This code is equal to writing border width is colon 1px, border color is red, border style is solid. We can specify different borders for sites via shorthand rules like border top, border left, border right, or border bottom. If we don't want any border, we can write it border colon 0. Width and height. Width defines numerical value for the width of element. For example, we can write it like 200 pixel. Height define numerical value for the height of the element, that is 100 pixel in this case. By default, the height of an element is defined by its content. Inline elements do not apply height unless you change their display style. Margin and padding. We can set margin and padding. We have seen that the default margin and padding of any browser is 0. So margin and padding define the spacing around the element. Numerical value, that is 10 px or minus 5 px, can be defined for each of the 4 sides separately. Margin top, padding left. Margin is the spacing outside of the border, and padding is the spacing between the border and the content. What are collapsing margins? The collapsing margins are the top and bottom margins of blocks are sometimes combined, collapsed into a single margin whose size is the largest of the individual margins or just one of them. If they are equal, a behavior known as margin collapsing will occur. Note that the margins of floating and absolutely positioned elements never collapse. Margin collapsing occur in the basic cases like adjacent siblings, no content separating parent and descendants, or empty blocks. Margin and padding chart rules. Margin 5x, it will set all four sides to have margin of 5px. Margin 10px, 20px, top and bottom to 10px, left to right to 20px. If we set margin 5px, 3px, 8px, it will set top 5px, left right 3px, and bottom 8 pixels. If we write margin colon 1px, 3px, 5px, and 7px, it will set top margin 1px, right 3px, bottom 5px, and left 7px. And this stands same for the padding margins. This is the box model. In CSS box model, all HTML elements can be considered as boxes. In CSS, the term box model is used when talking about design and layout. The CSS box model is essentially a box that wraps around every HTML element. It consists of margins, borders, paddings, and the actual content. The image below illustrates the box model. The content of the box where text and images appear. This is the content. The content of the box where text and images appear. And padding. Clear an area around the content. The padding is transparent. We can set and adjust padding. Then border. A border that goes around the padding and content. Margin. Clear an area outside the border. The margin is also transparent. And we can set margin, border, and padding of any element. When using Kirk modes, pages with no doc type or with a HTML4 transitional doc type, Internet Explorer violates the box model standard. In computing, Kirk mode refers to a technique used by some web browsers for the sake of maintaining backward compatibility with web pages designed for old web browsers instead of strictly complying with W3C and IETF standards in standard mode. So if you are going to use box model, then you need to apply strict mode or do not use backward compatibility or any Kirk mode. In that way you can apply the box model in your web pages. Positioning. Position define the positioning of the element in the page content flow. The value is one of these following parameters like static. This means the value of an element is default. Relative. It means relative position according to where the element would appear with static position. And absolute position according to the innermost positioned parent element. And fixed, same as absolute but ignores page scrolling. Margin versus relative positioning. Fixed and absolutely position elements do not influence the page normal flow and usually stay on top of other elements. Their position and size is ignored when calculating the size of the parent element or position of surrounding elements. Overlaid according to their z-index, inline, fixed or absolutely positioned elements can apply height like block level elements. Top left bottom right specifies offset of absolute fixed relative positioned elements as numerical values. Z-index specify the stack level of positioned element. Understanding stacking context. Z-index. In a web page, each positioned element creates a stacking context. Elements in different stacking contexts are overlapped according to the stacking order of their containers. For example, there is no way for A1 and A2 children of A, A1 and A2 children of A to be placed over B without increasing the z-index of A. If the z-index of A will be increased, then it may be possible that children of A, that those are A1 and 2, may be stacked over B. And without increasing z-index, we cannot apply a stacking on A or any other element. Inline element positioning. Vertical align sets the vertical alignment of an inline element according to the line height. Value of this particular vertical align would be baseline, subs, super, top, text, top, middle, bottom, text, bottom, or numeric. This is also used for content of table cells which apply middle alignment by default. Float. The element float to one side. If we set property to left, it will place the element on the left and following content on the right. And we apply right, places the element on the right and following content on the left. Floated elements should come before the content that will wrap around them in the code. Margins of floated element do not collapse. Floated inline elements can apply height. How floated elements are positioned. When an element is floated, it is taken out of the normal flow of the document, though still remaining part of it. It is shifted to the left or right until it touches the edge of its containing box or another floating element. Clear sets the sides of the element where other floating elements are not allowed. Used to drop elements below floated ones or expand a container which contains only floated children. Its possible values are left, right, and both. Clearing floats. Additional elements are div with a clear style. After content, display, black, clear, both, height. These are the triggering hash layout in IE. Internet Explorer expands a container of floated elements. Display inline block, or we can set zoom to 1. Opacity specify the opacity of the element. Floating point number from 0 to 1, and for old Mozilla browsers use -moz minus opacity. For Internet Explorer use filter alpha opacity value, where value is from 0 to 100. Also binary and script behavior must be enabled and hash layout must be triggered, that is with zoom 1. Visibility determines whether the element is visible. If we set it hidden, element is not rendered but still occupies place on the page, similar to opacity 0. Visible element is rendered normally. Display controls the display of the element and the way it is rendered, and if breaks should be placed before and after the element. If we set it inline, no breaks are placed before and after. Span is an inline element. Block breaks are placed after and after the element. Div is a block element. Display controls the display of the element and the way it is rendered, and if breaks should be placed before and after the element. We can set it none element is hidden and its dimensions are not used to calculate the surrounding elements rendering differ from visibility to hidden. There are some more possible values but not all browsers support them. Specific displays like table cell and table row. Overflow defines the behavior of element when content needs more space than you have specified by the size properties or for other reasons values. Visible default value content spills out of the element. Auto show scroll bars if needed. Scroll always show scroll bars. And hidden any content that cannot fit is clipped. Cursor specifies the look of the mouse cursor when placed over the element. Its values are crosshair, help pointer, progress, move, here, uh, column resize, row resize, text weight, copy drop, and others. White space control the line or breaking of text value is one of no wrap, keeps the text on one line, and normal default browser decides whether to break the line if needed. The benefit of using CSS. CSS are more powerful formatting than using presentation tags. Your page load faster because browser cache the .css files if you use CSS file externally. Increased accessibility because rules can be defined according to given media. Pages are easier to maintain and update. Maintenance example. This is a CSS file which can be applied to hundreds of pages, and we can control the behavior of all these pages using one CSS file. This is the power of CSS file. We can apply the same formatting as it appears on all these documents, that we can apply the same coloring scheme and spacing and the layout of each element. What we have applied in one page will be applied to all pages of that particular website. We can use different CSS development tools like Visual Studio offers CS editor. We can set color, its properties, attributes, its declaration block. It's all graphical interface. We can use Firebug. It's an add-on to Firefox and used to examine and adjust CSS and HTML. And we have IE developer toolbar added on to Internet Explorer used to examine CSS and HTML. Press F12 to launch this tool. In Chrome we have inspect element and we can launch its editor to examine and debug our code. CSS allows you to control all design related aspects of your website. Typography, colors, page layout, and any other visual aspects of your websites are all controlled via CSS. What's more, CSS allows you to control and adjust the design and formatting of your entire website from a single spot. This is done using what's called an external style sheet. Now, if you want to build and run your websites yourself, getting a deeper understanding about how all this stuff works is crucial. But it's often made out to be confusing and frustrating. That's why uh, the understanding and learning of CSS is important. Alongside HTML, CSS is foundational to all modern web designs. Other technologies might be added to the web design mix, JavaScript, PHP, and others, but HTML and CSS are always used. Again, They are all foundation.